I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo del Real, here with my partner, Mr. Nicolas Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is, and man, do we need it this week, the 282nd episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. Lots going on in the markets, lots going on in the world, lots to get to. Let's get to it. First and foremost, as always, how are you, Mr. Hodge?
I'm doing very well, Gerardo. I was going to give you some Spanish, but I got Italian in my head. I was talking to my grandmother on FaceTime earlier, and, I do the Itanglish with her. And so to go from the Itanglish to the Spanglish, it just makes it trifold difficult to do. So I'll spare you that today, but I'm very well. How are you?
Excelente. ¿Cómo está tu abuelita, Nick?
Mia donna sta bene. Sta bene, see?
Beautiful. So similar, right? Mi nana está bien. So similar. So similar. Man, let's cook. Look, there's a lot going on. As I mentioned, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the markets. We're going to start with the markets this week. Gold. Wow. We talked about it last week. We said it looked technically strong. We talked about resistance. We talked about, some of the macro catalysts with, rate cuts seemingly to be imminent. Here in September, and some people even calling foolishly, in my opinion, for an emergency rate cut, which I don't think happens. But gold has responded beautifully, trading at 24.56. Silver rebounded well, right? It flirted with that 26.50 level and shot right back up, trading at 28.33. Copper's telling, curse alert, everybody, if the kids are around. Copper's telling all the shorts, hey, you know what? How about fuck you? We're back. So copper's above the $4 level at 410. That looks like it's going to have a great fourth quarter here to close out the year. So I say all that to say that it's the summer doldrums. People are out and about. People are vacationing. But as the kids start transitioning back to school, as mine are, as execs and companies get back in the office, it really warms my heart because I love the sector, right? To see companies that are producing results. And I ranted about this last week. Companies, you got to get out there and do something. But the companies that are finding stuff are being rewarded, right? We have Q2 Metals, which we helped finance. That financing just closed a week or so ago at 25 cents. And they had a barter of a bunch of holes, not just one, right? Something like 242 meters of continuous spodumene in the drill hole. And that stock has doubled. It's up 100% in the last couple of weeks. There's other stocks. We helped finance a copper gold play about a month or so ago. That thing is up 75%. We have China with an antimony ban, right? We'll get into that a bit. Perpetua Resources, formerly Midas Gold, longtime favorite of the portfolio and staple of the portfolio. That's touching 52-week highs. So the stuff that's working is working really well. And I think, it speaks to my rant last week that companies just need to get out there and get to work. Go create some value. Go poke some holes. There's a lot of companies that are starting to do that. Almadex is drilling. Palomina is drilling. Several other companies are drilling and hitting and being rewarded. How are you feeling the space in general as it relates to the companies that are hitting? And then what do you think about the companies that are just waiting for a better market? And then we'll get back to the macro thing I started with.
So, I think about the long-term fundamentals and positioning a lot. And I've always said that I'm convinced about this, super cycle. I'm convinced about the metals needed for the green transition and all that sort of stuff. The last couple of weeks were obviously very strange with the amount of volatility we had, the pulling back of the copper price, the pulling back of the uranium price and other commodities pulling back. I think I saw a chart earlier today that said that hedge funds were their, most net short commodities in so many months or so many years, right? And so you talk about how copper was looking better and silver was looking better. I think there's a squeeze effect to that because they were so debased in the past week, given that they were sold down a little bit. So that's good. And in the longer term, I obviously think that they head higher. Companies do have to work, right? I mean, we'll be out with a new promotion in the next couple of weeks here about the struggles of the mining sector and why the TSXV has lost $8 and $10, since 2013 or 2010 or something like that. And some of that has to do with lifestyle companies that don't put the money to work, et cetera. And so some of it has to do with some other things. But yeah, you've got to be out there, spending your capital on your properties, advancing them however they need to be advanced, whether that's vectoring it on targets, doing geophysics, et cetera, or actually, drilling if you've got your targets identified. So You and I talk all the time about stocks that have been doing well, or are doing well, and then stocks that aren't doing well. And it's exactly like you say. I mean, companies got to be out there in the news, delivering results and reports, reporting what they're doing. And at the same time, you're very optimistic. We talk about this all the time, and how I'm, a little bit more tempered. And so, yeah, you talk about Q2 doubling from 25 to 50 cents, though I have to imagine if those results came out in 2020 or 2021, that would likely be a $3, $4, $5 stock on the back of those results. And so I don't think we've regained that fervor yet, but I think we're headed back that way. And I also think there's we'll wait and see, because, we're still in let's call it the eye of the storm, for lack of a better term. I told you last week that, when the VIX spikes to 60 like that, it doesn't just go away, right? I use the aftershock analogy, like
Sure.
tremors and things, right? And so I think there's just some bouncing around, like, PPI came out under, and then CPI came out right on the nose, and then the retail sales were good, but consumer sentiment is bad. Like, there's just a lot of conflicting data right now, and we're still in the middle of earnings season. So, and remember, NVIDIA, not till the end of the month, which is going to be a major event for the market. I think the 28th, I said last week. So how do I feel? It's always the loaded question, right? I mean, I feel good about the long term and my allocations and my positions and my speculations. And in the short term, I haven't been doing much, right? Because this is when you can get offside. So, like, I wasn't dumping positions and I wasn't getting shaken out. This is, really where you need to know what you own and have the conviction is the word, and the patience to sort of ride these things through. So, yeah, it's good to see copper bounce back up. It's good to see, gold stocks that you and I follow up 25% in a day for sure. And I expect that to continue in the long term. Although in the short term, I do still expect a couple of more bounces. Bounces around volatility.
Absolutely. Let's I want to get right to the meat of everything, right? Let's get to it. Gold looks good, silver looks good, copper looks good. Uranium's putting in a good floor. I have to talk lithium, because that lithium bottoming process for the equities is taking a whole hell of I've been wrong about that for months now, right? It's taken, not wrong in the sense that it's happening. It's happening. It's just taking a whole hell of a lot longer for the lithium equities to actually price in the fact that it's happening. There was, and I already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again, the Q2 metals. I want to get the numbers precise. 215.6 meter interval of continuous spodumene pegmatite at its Cisco lithium property. That's 100% owned property in James Bay with phenomenal infrastructure. Even after that 100% move higher, the company's got a market cap of $59 million. Pilbara Minerals just went ahead and bought Latin Resources at a 66.7% premium. It's a $369.4 million deal. And listen, the reason I highlight how the disconnect between a Q2, which is obviously much earlier stage, right? We don't have a resource. We don't have, any studies out much earlier. But when you're hitting 215.6 meters of continuous lithium spodumene pegmatite, and that's within a 363.4 meter hit cumulatively, the ounces and the tons I should say, are going to go ahead and be added very, very quickly. I want to congratulate DeRouge Capital and Neil McCallum, because they have been knocking it out of the fucking park the last couple of years. Jody DeRouge, Neil McCallum, the ladies and gentlemen out there, shout out to you all, because while everybody's bitching and moaning about the sector, y'all are out there finding, formerly known as Corvette. Y'all are finding the Cisco Metals projects of the world. And again, at Q2 Metals, you mentioned how in a better market, it would be a $3, $4, $5 company. It's going to be a $3, $4, $5 company for everybody that's, boohooed Patriot in the past several months during this pullback. Cool. You've been right. I've been wrong. I was right at 16 cents. I got it right $17, and now I've been wrong all the way down to $5. I don't think it's a coincidence that the stock is up, some 15, 20% earlier today on the back of the news that Ken is bringing back, someone that is very familiar with them, that's got, decades of experience, not only litigating, but actually building, some of the bigger projects in the world. So look, if you think that Patriot's market cap at $700 million is the end game for Ken, and that's why he moved back to Canada to be cold, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you, and I'll happily buy your Patriot shares. So we're again, I've always said we're going to be in it till the end for Patriot. Either gets bought out at 25, 30, 35, 40, or Ken and his buddies build it again, makes it a $9-10 billion company during the sweet spot of the next lithium cycle. So know where you're at in the cycle, know what you own, and get to it. In the meantime, we're picking them up and flipping 100% winners here, almost on a monthly basis here recently. Do they all win? No, but the core companies are doing damn well for the most part.
I'm going to provide the comic relief this week. I couldn't help but notice that.
I love it. I saw the smile.
You haven't memorized the name of the new name of the deposit yet because you referred to it as the.
It's way too many syllables for me.
I neither have I. So Shagichi-wanan. Let's do it. Shagichi-wanan.
Shagichi-wanan. Formerly known as Corvette. You're going to hear that a lot from me, folks. That's not going to change.
Shagichi-wanan.
Listen, and with all due respect, I could barely say my own name in English, right? Because my name's Gerardo in Spanish. Gerardo sounds weird when I say it, but half of you can't even pronounce that. So, yeah, I keep it simple on my side of things.
Geraldo.
Oh, I get that one. All the time. In emails where my name is there.
That sort of speaks back to my long-term trajectory, right? Because, I know I'm right in the long term, and you sort of got to, have the patience in the short term. So, especially in the past couple of months here, we've seen stories about, was one in the New York Times I was reading about, Ford and GM, reneging on some of their commitments to produce electric vehicles. And then you see softness of demand and, articles about how hybrids are going to have to come back. And it's like, yeah, those are sort of still intermediary problems, like the long-term adoption for EVs and the long-term sustainability. I mean, think about it, even from a political standpoint, right? Like right and left. I mean, Elon Musk and Trump just had their, talk that didn't really start off too well. I tried to listen and gave up after 15 minutes, but I did listen afterward. And, basically it's Elon Musk positioning to get handouts for, subsidies for electric cars and solar. And so, even a Republican administration is, he's cozying up to that to get the, subsidies and continued, beneficial policy for the adoption of Tesla. So that stuff's not going anywhere, even if it's soft in the short term. And, we've been saying that even as the price of lithium has come down over the past couple of years, right? So, yeah, I continue to own shares of Patriot. I continue to own shares of Q2. There's even other lithium names we own that continue to struggle as well. I should probably mention Critical Elements Lithium, which I've been in for a while. That was putting in new 52-week lows this week. Has yet to materialize with a financing package. And so I still own that stock, but, I own it for free. So I'm not really down, right? Because we sold some when it was 300-400% up in the portfolio. But they've had a rough go of it too. And nonetheless, that mine is going to get financed and built, right, at some point. So I don't worry about the long term.
I don't worry about the long term at all. I actually don't even worry about the midterm. The short term, again, it's always harder to trade in and out of stuff, folks. If you're looking to call bottoms and catch bottoms, and you're looking to catch tops, more power to you. If you can get out at every top and call every bottom, that's definitely a difficult thing to do, especially in the space that I dabble in, like exclusively the resource space. It's a very cyclical business. What I can tell you is this: I've never been worried being down 50 or 60% on a position where I know what the end game is if they have the goods, right? I wasn't worried with formerly Midas Gold and Perpetual Resources, not worried with Patriot, was never worried with Q2, even before Cisco, because we knew that the grade, historically had been around that 1.5%, and we're waiting on assays, mind you. We know the intercepts, wide and huge, and there were several, but we are still waiting on assays there. If those grades are anywhere near what they've been historically, you're going to see that stock run to $1 really, really quickly. And everybody and there were a lot of you that we helped get into that financing recently, got to have a lot, big smiles on their faces to hold them over while we get through the part of the cycle where a rising tide really does lift all boats. We're not there yet right now, whether it's in lithium or gold or in any other space, but we definitely are seeing companies get aggressive with their capital allocation. We talked about a Cisco last week, the $1.5 billion deal. Now you have, the Latin Resources getting taken out. That's a $500 million deal. Pilbara allocating capital. Other companies, I think, are absolutely looking to allocate capital aggressively. And I think a lot of the funds that went short and did well with the short, congrats to them, are all of a sudden going to make a U-turn here soon. And remember, shorts provide liquidity. As much as everyone hates it on the way down, it's great on the way up when they get squeezed, right? Because they have to come in, they're going to buy, and they're going to provide the trampoline that gets prices, the Patriots of the world from 5 to 10 really quickly. And then it can start trading on its merits and exploration targets and all the great work that it's doing. But yeah, fun days ahead. Definitely not at the point in the cycle. I want to keep emphasizing that, where everything goes up. If you have uranium explorers, not time yet. If you have gold explorers and they're not drilling or hitting, not time yet. If you have copper explorers and they're not drilling and hitting, not time yet. But the companies that are doing work are being rewarded. And luckily, I think, there's several companies. I mentioned a couple, but we have a ton of them in the portfolio that are finally getting to work. And the ones that are not are going to be out of the portfolio, even if they're just a small position by year end. We're going to focus a whole heck of a lot more on companies that are getting work done. And yeah, you take losses in the portfolio and it doesn't look great, but if it's a small position, it means nothing if your core position is up several 1,000% or several 100%, right?
That's right.
I like it. You mentioned Trump and Mr. Musk and the call. I think the Trumpster said that Elon Musk gave him a full-throated endorsement, was the word that he used. The Trumpster also is he's having a hard go of it if I'm just judging him by his tweets and by his remarks on his social platform, right? I think it's, what's it called, Truth Social or something. They're increasingly more bizarre and nonsensical. And again, I'm not partisan, but it just, I again want to get to the part where we talk about the issues. I want to get to the part where we talk about, how we're going to make the country better. I don't know if anybody else out there still cares about that. I'm being flippant, obviously, everyone, but what are your thoughts so far, like on what you're seeing and how it's developing? And we're going to talk about it every week, I think, even if it's just for a minute or two, because it's consequential. It's important, right?
Yeah. I've already told you I'm not voting for either of them. And that was, I made up my mind on that a while ago. I don't know what to say. He's clearly not happy with, Kamala. He thinks that it's going to be harder to defeat her than it was Biden. He said that it wasn't fair. With JD Vance, you talked about that last week, how he came out of the gate strong and then sort of fell on his face, and you wished that you didn't jinx Mr. Walz, although Mr. Walz isn't having the easiest go of it, given the pushback against his military record. And I saw a story out today about him having a DUI in the 90s that he lied about during his congressional run in 2006, as far as, whether or not he was transported to the police station and whether or not he had been drinking, which he was transported to the police station and he had been drinking and said he wasn't and was able to drive to the police station on his own. So, fuck them all is sort of where I'm at, right? Like, yeah, I don't see substantive policies out of either side, right? Trump says, I'm going to drain the swamp. And it's like, well, yeah, you were there for 4 years. And Kamala says, like, I'm going to turn this around. And it's like, well, wait, turn what around? You're the one that's in charge now. And so, to give credence to either one of them makes you a fool, like not them, right? So, yep. I mean, and then what else? So for the policies that, that they agree on they tout, we're not going to tax tips. Great. Like they're both, preaching on that right now. But, Kamala's not doing press conferences. I don't know. Those are sort of my takes on it, right? I saw you had Rogan endorses, RFK on there. So, I probably won't vote for him either. But I will say this, like everybody plays, dirty and everybody plays hardball. I read an article yesterday about how the Democrats were suing in Wisconsin, I believe it is, to keep Jill Stein off the ballot. And so, it's dirty across the board, right? Because they think that she's going to draw votes away from them and what is a battleground state, et cetera.
Well, they did it to Bernie last time, right?
No
they
doubt.
did it to Bernie.
And then what else? I mean, just anecdotes, right? I talk to people and it's complete tribalism still. That's what I say. If you buy it to either side, you're the one that's a fool. Like I was at a birthday party last week and I was talking to someone who clearly leans right and they were railing on Kamala and talking about, what did they say? How many primaries has she even run? One. She's going to be the president. And I said, how many primaries did Donald Trump win before he became president? Like, what other offices did he hold? It's so like, did you even consider that other side of the coin? Like, did your brain able to compute like anything that's not like for your tribe? And so anyway, it was a fun little kid's birthday party though.
What do I want to say? Joe Rogan. The reason I put that on our little sheet that we put stuff up on 2 minutes before we start this podcast, because that's how we do it. We freestyle all of it. Nick puts more thought into it than I do, if we're being honest. But the backlash he received from the right, Rogan tends to have a large following that tends to lean Republican, right? Tends to lean right on a lot of things. And they were smashing him for saying that he believes that the only person's policies that make sense were Mr. Kennedy, right? Which is all he said. And he had to backtrack. He had to come out 2 days after and say, I didn't endorse the guy. I said that he was the only one whose policies seemed to make sense to me. And so it speaks to how tribal we are, where someone as outspoken and someone who prides himself on free speech and being independent thinking, as Joe Rogan does, even he had to backtrack to keep away from the backlash and getting caught in the circus, which is why I think he did it. I just think we're at a perilous time as it relates to free speech and independent thought, and that it's not healthy for any democracy or republic.
I think at this time and juncture, I should relay the allegory of the cave, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Going back to ancient Greek philosophy and the folks who were locked in the dark cave for all their lives, and all they saw were the shadows on the wall projected by their masters. And so that's all they knew was reality. And one day, one of them escaped the cave and went out into the beautiful world and saw the sun and the birds and the clouds and the sky, and went back into the cave and said, y'all, there's some awesome shit out there, man. You're not going to believe it. This shit in here ain't where it's at. Like, they're just showing you shadows on the wall. And everybody in the cave was like, nah, man, you're crazy, dude.
Oh, man. It all seems crazy till it hits the fan, right? It's an odd time. Look, E-Trade was down for the last 10 minutes of the trading day. Iran's central banking system got hit here this past week as we, anticipate a retaliatory, because it is, attack, for the murder of multiple heads of I don't want to get off political, but we're waiting. I mean, everybody anticipates a response, and whether you believe it's just or not, all we've seen from the West and its allies is nothing but aggression, right? And responses. So that happened. The E-Trade thing happened.
They're talking about the Strait of Hormuz again. That comes up in the headlines. Once every decade, you read about the Strait of Hormuz and how perilous it is, and how 60% of the global oil exports pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day. I got pretty granular on the satellite imagery this week, and I was reading articles about how they could shut that down very easily, and that's always been their, pardon the phrasing, their trump card, right? We're waiting. What's the attack going to be? And I'm not sure they can attack people inside Israel. And so there's been increasing, let's call it, chatter about, taking out the Strait of Hormuz. I think there's a reason that, we talked about a commodity sell-off over the past couple of weeks. Oil has held in there relatively well, despite what we had over the past couple of weeks, despite this talk of an economic slowdown, et cetera. So, there's definitely things that are going on out there, and things are definitely weird and getting memory hold for sure.
A lot of just odd stuff going on in the world right now, right? Hackers may have stolen every American social security number. This after, several corporations over the past several months, had systems taken completely down. It just feels like everybody behind the scenes is in some sort of tech war, a silent, cold tech war, and they're trying out their toys and their mechanisms and their platforms to see how effective these things can be before launching, a more substantial attack on whatever you think, is a valid target, whether that be infrastructure, the water system, you name it. It's just, my brain goes to odd places, I know, but when I see communication systems down several months ago for, hours and days from major corporations, not small ones. It was AT&T, it was, Verizon, it was all these groups. And then I see, banks having issues, and I see central banks getting hit, and I see social security numbers being stolen. It just feels like us being in a fourth turning, this being an election year, something bigger is coming. And, then I see the reason why Perpetual was up some 25% at one point today. I see
Moni,
China now.
Moni.
Yeah, antimony, right? It's now decided to place a ban starting in mid-September on the export of antimony. And of course, Perpetual Resources, and this is something we've been telling y'all since 2016. It always takes longer, by the way, but they are one of the few major potential sources of antimony, along with having one of the single best gold deposits in all of North America. It's waiting on its permit. I absolutely believe this was the cherry on top for that permit. I think this pushes it across the finish line. If there was any question, I think the market's picked up on that. You know, $2,500 gold sure in the heck helps. And look, the stock hit 52-week highs. Subscribers have done well with that. We started talking about it again, I think, when it was somewhere near the $2 mark, if I'm not mistaken, Nick. And then obviously, you know, subscribers that subscribed on that promotion on the publishing side of the company and bought in at the $2 mark, $3, $4 mark are happy as all hell because it's happened in relatively short order. There's a lot of runway left. And this is where knowing what you own pays, folks, right? Because it's easy to sell a 300% gain if you made it in the past 12 months, given the state of the resource space and how tough it's been to generate those kind of returns. What I will say is this: you pick when you take your profits. I sometimes trim positions, not because I want to, just because I have tuition and tax bills and things that come up, payroll and whatever, right? I want to build a river. I want to build a pool. Like, things happen. But knowing what you own is critical in this space. The Stibnite asset at current prices, not even at current prices, at $23.50 gold and $24 silver, has a net present value of about $4 billion Canadian. Its current market cap is $500 million, even after brand new 52-week highs. Think of the disconnect that existed when this thing was at $2, right? And it had a market cap of $150 million. And I told everyone, it is a tier 1 deposit. These always get bought out or built. These always end up reverting back to the mean, and the mean is always going to be higher. That's what Patriot has. That's what, you know, Stibnite is. And I say that to say know what you own, because that's got a lot of runway. There's a lot of runway between $500 million and $4 billion, especially if we believe, like I believe, that gold is going to continue higher. So yeah, whether that gets built or bought out, it's a phenomenal asset. If you own it, I'd be holding it. Of course, what you do ultimately is completely up to you. I just want you to know what you own if you own it in your portfolio. It's a top-notch special asset. There you go.
There was someone who said to us, I believe, no one wants to buy this stock at $2, and they're going to be fighting over themselves to buy it at $10. And that's what we saw today, right? No one wants to buy the stock at $2 with no volume, with negative sentiment. And then today it's up 25% at $10 on the highest volume in many months. And so, yeah, psychology is interesting. Humans are animals, and it is what it is. And so, you know, you were talking about, we were talking about the allegory of the cave and how things are wonky out there. Not that I want to get away from gold and things like that, but you'll drive yourself crazy trying to figure it all out. And that's why I've long said your primary concern needs to be yourself and your family and your own portfolio. And you can look at the data and the prices and the trends and interpret what that means for you. But to go out there and have your main focus be on this candidate or this idea or this thing that a politician said or something that a company's doing, like that ain't where it's at. And that's not what's going to help you navigate. Well, we've already been navigating for a decade, like this stuff has been going on, but it's not going to, you know, it's not going to help you navigate going forward. And so, you know, false flags and official narratives, you know, that's just how the world works. And so, you know, to try to figure things out in real time, you end up just, you know, being like a dog looking at squirrels, right? And never actually getting anything done. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention, because there was a big article out from Wall Street Journal about the Nord Stream pipeline, essentially, you know, saying that it was Ukraine, Zelensky, and a team of divers that they sent. Of course, the official narrative when the Nord Stream pipeline blew up was that it was self-sabotaged by Putin and the Russians. And if you deviated from that narrative, you were a Putin supporter, or you were anti-American, or whatever it was, right? And so anyway, and the same with COVID, you know, you can look back at COVID and all those sort of things. So the things you're being told in the moment aren't often the things, right? And either because, and this isn't conspiracy, I mean, some of it is, you know, people have an interest in having a certain narrative and having things appear a certain way.
But at the same time, again, we're all humans and we're all animals. Sometimes people just don't fucking know, right? And they project confidence and they tell you something just because humans need a narrative, or humans need a reason, right? Like, gold was up because of X. It can't just be like gold was up because there was more buyers than sellers today, right? It has to always be because of something. And so that's just the human brain. I'm going to start pulling books off my shelf every week as they relate to our podcast.
I love it. I'm looking now. It's overflowing over there. If I could show you on my bookshelf, I would. I need to add some anyhow. What are we watching for this week, Nick? Is there anything else you want to get off your chest? I absolutely want to talk about, China and the antimony thing, and really quickly before we get to what we're watching. But I've said for a long time that there is a silent Cold War going on behind the scenes with China and the U.S. that is not so silent anymore. And I think it will continue to be less and less silent as we move forward. The ban on antimony, follows the similar ban last year on graphite. And it's why the lithium bears and shorts that have been, gleeful, the people, and look, how you make your money is how you make your money. The only people that, I kind of laugh at are the people that missed the first run up in the lithium space. I don't laugh at them because they missed it, right? I want everybody to make money because I like seeing people succeed. I laugh at the bitterness that comes with missing the run and the joy they've taken from seeing prices pull back on on the lithium price. And most of these people have no skin in the game, right? What's Mr. Bishop's analogy that he taught us? They're playing the matches.
Poker with toothpicks.
Poker with toothpicks, right?
Matchsticks,
yeah, you don't really have any skin in the game, right? You're not making money either way. You just like to be a hater. And so for those people, in a year's time, you're going to really hate what's going to happen in the lithium space and the Patriots and the Q2s of the world. It's going to be hilarious again because you're going to miss another run up. And then what I'm saying is educate yourself to focus on the positive, on making money, on success, on seeing people succeed, on helping yourself succeed. If all you spend your time on is typing stuff on Twitter about when something goes down after it went up a lot, you don't really have skin in the game either way. I don't know what your life is about it. I just wish you a better, more productive quality of life. I don't know what to say that. I don't have a hater bone in my body. I just like to see people win and succeed. But, the human psychology thing is what led to this rant. It's odd to me that people take such glee in seeing bad things happen. When you can just kind of...
Schadenfreude.
Right? Extreme. So I say that to say I love what I'm seeing in the lithium space. I don't love what I'm seeing between China and the U.S., but I do think it continues to accelerate and highlight the importance of an independent critical metal supply chain that is going to absolutely be hugely bullish for uranium, for lithium, for graphite, for rare earths in North America and with North American allies. And it's why Patriots deposit, which I'm never going to be able to pronounce, is so special and unique, and why I don't worry about the price because I know what I own. It's why, if Cisco continues to produce these kind of results, it's going to be on a short list of very, very special world-class assets in North America. It's why the uranium companies in the portfolio, when they go through a pullback, I just tell subscribers, buy some more if you can. Like, who cares about the pullback? The end game isn't $80 uranium, y'all. The end game is the 150, 200 overshoot. That's when we go tap, right? The end game for lithium isn't where it's at right now or Patriot at $5. And sure the heck wasn't Patriot at 17. It's when we actually get, and then Ken Brinsden, Patriot CEO, spoke to this recently very intelligently. It's when we get, a consortium of companies that decide we're not playing by the Chinese prices. And frankly, we don't even want any of that supply because we have enough potential here at home or with our allies to have our own pricing mechanism and our own separate price independent of that. That's the future, folks. And, as for my Canadian friends, as the great Wayne Gretzky, right, used to say, go to where the puck is going, not where the puck is at. That's how you make money in this space. So know what you own, go to where the puck is going, and just, celebrate people's successes, man. You guys could be haters out there, get a life.
Yeah, look, I was cleaning out my bookshelf the other day. That's why it was top of mind. Because I told you I moved back into this office. Haven't been here in a couple of years. And I found the agenda from the 2021 New Orleans Investment Conference. Also, by the way, Gerardo and I will be at the 2024 New Orleans Investment Conference, which I believe is the 50th
anniversary, baby. Yes, sir.
We'll have to start getting some links up for that. It's later in November this year than it typically is, but it is coming up. Nonetheless, our talk that year, at 2021, the year of our Lord, was green metal inflation. Remember, this was when inflation was transitory back in 2021, if you recall. And we were saying that this green metals inflation is real and it's going to persist. I imagine copper was well below $4 at that point. I know for a fact uranium was well below $50 at that point, and on down the line. And so that's what I mean by that long-term trajectory, right? So you talk about this week, yes, China said antimony bans, but last year, as you said, it was graphite, and I also recall gallium. And so, I've read the IEA reports that have the size of the ban for how much China controls, where it's like, and it's not just production, it's refining and turning them into the magnets, etc. It's still 80% for the rare earths, and it's still, a majority of the copper. I'm talking about like the refinement and stuff now. And so when I think about that long-term narrative, even in the, whatever, in the short term, in the past couple of months when, commodities prices are fluctuating and Ford's not building electric vehicles anymore. That's what I think back to that long-term trajectory. And it's like, yeah, but it still takes 10 years to find a mine. And China is still not going to give us the metals and minerals that we need. Nope. And we're not going to have a good relationship with them. And so that's what I mean by that long-term trajectory for the green metals being in place, right? So Shagichi Wanan.
What do you think a copper and gold belt that's never been explored with over 1,000 kilometers would be worth in this environment, right? If you have a couple of escondidas and maybe a filo tucked in,
I heard there could be worth more than 70 million ounces of gold there.
Yeah. Maybe just on the surface. We're gonna go find out and see if the back of the napkin numbers make sense when we're on the ground. But we're looking forward to getting that done. Exciting times in the space, folks. For those of you that have just speculative positions, don't have the tier 1 assets, don't have the Bravos, don't have the Patriots, don't have, some of the other ones, the Mawsons. Look, the price appreciation's always going to go there first, unless you're exploring and making discoveries. The companies making discoveries now, they're starting to get love. We're seeing M&A pick up. The commodity prices are doing what they're supposed to do. It's going to be a fun end to the year and a really fun 2025. And we're excited to get back to site visits. We're excited to get to conferences. We're going to be at Beaver Creek, both Nick and I, with camera crew in tow. If you're there, reach out, say hi. For those companies that wonder why we never mention you, hey, reach out and tell us more about your projects, right? If you believe in them that passionately. I took a couple of meetings of companies that in regions where I don't invest and in commodities that aren't really attractive to me at this point. But the CEO and then the team was so passionate about putting it in front of me that I said, well, I want to go listen. Maybe we can help tell the story, even if it's not something that I personally, I'm writing a check for right now. And so if you have a story to get out in front of us, folks, reach out. Happy to have a discussion, take a look. It's what we do. We love what we do, and it benefits our subscribers because at the end of the day, the more information and in deals that we have to look at, the better we can, serve them and serve you all here on this podcast. So hopefully some of that made sense. Anything else you got there, Nick? What you watching this week?
No, you're gonna ask me what I'm watching. So again, Eye of the Storm, I need it to pass. So I think even by the time we talk next week, we won't have NVIDIA earnings. And so what am I watching? I think the answer is everything. But I'm watching it with patience because I'm not convinced that the volatility is over, and I don't like making moves when price swings can be wide if volatility is going to spike back up. So the answer to what I'm watching is everything for the next couple of weeks, and I certainly have an eye on these tech earnings that are going to come out in the last week of August.
Have an eye on the tech earnings. Have an eye on the dollar. It's now down to 102. If it gets below the 100 mark and we get a rate cut in September, it's going to get real interesting with gold, folks, for the simple fact that Western central banks and ETFs have not been large purchasers of gold up until very, very recently. And the fact that we have a $2,500 gold price, with the bulk of the buying coming outside of the West, as we go into a rate cutting cycle, you can see 3,000 and 3,500 in very short order. And if you think Perpetua's $500 million market cap and a 52-week high is impressive, watch what that net present value of the Stibnite project looks like with $3,500 gold. And it's going to make, you've joked, Nick, that they started permitting that when your daughter was born, right? And how old is your daughter now?
Oh, gosh, Gerardo, she's 8 years old.
Yeah, so it takes a while, folks, is what I'm telling you. And sometimes you got to be that patient. But if you know what you own and it goes the right way on the permitting front, which I think it will, especially now with this antimony ban, it's worthwhile. Folks, just know what you own.
I was looking up the dollar. I was looking up the dollar correlation. Sorry. So yeah, it's interesting. So gold is inversely correlated with the dollar over the past 30 days, over the past 90 days, over the past 15 days. And this is what I mean by the wonkiness, which is why I'm not prepared to make decisions, because other asset classes that typically correlate with the dollar, like oil and Bitcoin, they're not inversely correlating. Like Bitcoin is trading with the dollar right now over the past 30 days, and almost it's 0.86 to 1 over the past half a month. That's almost 1 to 1, right? So you wonder why Bitcoin's going down. It's been going down with the dollar. And that's what I mean by being uncertain and needing to have patience, because some of these typical correlations or inverse correlations have broken down and shit just ain't acting right is what I'm saying. So I need to figure out why, or watch until it gets back to acting right.
It's a bizarro world out there, everybody. We aptly titled and named this podcast Over a Beer at Nick's Home as a joke. And the following week we were recording a podcast, bought the domain, and here we are 282 episodes later, right? So glad we did it. It's been fun. It's been necessary. It's been great. Hopefully you all get some value and at least a little entertainment from it. I did check in. It was a waitress. It wasn't a stripper. We almost had a stripper night, but it turned into a dinner, and it was a great dinner. It was fantastic. And no, look, the economy.
And what did you say? I'm actually interested.
Yeah. The economy is slowing a bit. There definitely is less of a demand, and definitely on the higher end, they're feeling more of a pinch to where they're having to diversify their offerings to bring in more people. Meaning, even at the higher scale restaurants, they're knocking down prices or having more events where there's a DJ and you get happy hour with your meal, right? All of that starts to happen at the higher end restaurants. When they start acting like the Hooters of the world, there's a reason for that. And that's because they need to make it up on volume, because they're no longer making it up on price. And she absolutely said there's definitely been, a change in the past 4 months. So take that for what it's worth. I'll follow up on my due diligence with my ladies of the night here if the opportunity presents itself sometime soon. But until then, I am Gerardo Del Real along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 282nd episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. I hope you all have a great week. I'm watching for Q2 metals assays. I'm watching for assays from the new I-grade zone from Patriot. And I'm watching to see if this lithium M&A cycle accelerates here, as it maybe looks like possibly, again, we may be at lows and there's some momentum in that much hated space right now. That's what we're watching. Y'all take care out there.
Have a good one.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.